Hello, welcome to Design Time. I'm Jackie Lacey. We wanted to spend a little time this week talking about one of my favorite flowers, the Phalaenopsis orchid. I can't say enough about Phalaenopsis orchids, or phales like we refer to them in the industry. They're just so elegant and beautiful, and so many people really enjoy them as a house plant. It's probably one of the #1 trending blooming plants that we find on the market right now, because they'll produce these luscious, beautiful blooms that can last up to 3 months, depending on how you care for the plant. The great thing about this as a cut flower option is not only is it elegant, it really sort of stands on its own. It comes in a variety of colors, even some of those that have these great spots on them that sort of looks like a little bit of a cow print or something like that. Just really beautiful and elegant. People really can spend a lot of time just enjoying these beautiful blooms. But as a cut flower, it can also last up to 3 weeks. Yes, that's 3 weeks in the home, depending on how you care for it. Now, a lot of people shy away from them because they get a little bit concerned. That's way too expensive. The cost is going to be based on where you order it, how many you're ordering, how often you order. Are you ordering direct or through your local wholesaler or from another supplier? So we can't really talk about cost too much as far as this level, but it may be in the $20, $25 range as far as per stem when you add shipping and boxing charges, things like that. But the thing you have to keep in mind is, as a cut flower, even at a price like that, if you can show value to your clients or the consumer, then they will understand it a little bit better. Looking at the cost, we start to break it down then by bloom. And you can see how it can become much more affordable if you're using it by the bloom, or if you're able to split it into 2 pieces. Now, the great thing about Phalaenopsis orchids is, like we have talked about already, they come in a variety of colors. They are beautiful, elegant, have multi-blooms on there, so it can go a long way. One of the things I want to make sure that we concentrate on talking about is the way they're packaged. Phales travel best flat in a long box like this, protected both from underneath and above with nice solid padding. You'll find that they're individually tubed so that they have moisture for the travel. Also, most suppliers like this, when you buy them direct, are going to ship them to you by taping down the stems. Now, be very cautious when you start to open that box. You want to open it and they're going to be there in layers. The great thing about buying direct is that quite often they'll come to you with a little bit of that batting in between each bloom, which really protects the blooms so that they don't get broken or damaged in shipping. When you're paying a lot of money for a stem of orchids like that, you want to make sure that they're well protected and they're going to arrive just the way that you want to be able to use them. So now that we've talked about shipping, we get them in, what do we do afterwards? It's recommended that you make sure that your Phalaenopsis stay out of the cooler. They're cold sensitive. So you want to keep them out in a nice container that will support the stem. Make sure that you are using clean water. You might have your water tested. That has a little bit to do with it, but not as much. You do not want to add floral, food, or preservative into the water. You just want to change it often so that it's a nice, clean drink of water for the stems. Recut the stems every 2 to 3 days, and you'll be amazed how long and beautiful you'll be able to enjoy the Phalaenopsis orchids. Now remember, when you start looking at how do I use them, and that's a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. I love incorporating them into fall flowers, because anytime you add a little splash of that lavender or purple into a beautiful fall arrangement such as this, and by just wiring the stems, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, you can see how it just makes the arrangement pop. When you add in a few blooms of that beautiful lavender purple color into a fall design, now suddenly it's vibrant and it really comes alive. So think about adding 2 or 3 into those high-end or event pieces. These blooms with no water source will last for a few days, just taped up like this and inserted to a design. So you're going to want to be sure that you let the customer know that. It's not something that should be expected to last for a week or more. Now, if you're putting them in with the stem, and the great thing again about utilizing orchids like this by the stem is that you don't have to have a whole lot. This is one stem that was split into two pieces so that I had some down here at the base as well as some up top. But you can see very easily that with a beautiful, elegant floral product like this, if we removed the large one and just kept the small one in there, it still has great appeal. It's a really sexy flower, one of those that goes a long way and again stands on its own. So you are provided with lots of different options when it comes to utilizing the Phalaenopsis orchid. As we begin to look at options on how do we put them in or incorporate them into other designs, here we've just created a water tube that's covered with some of the bind wire. We could fill that with water. We would not want to tape it, but we'd cut the bloom off, and we could easily add a nice elegant touch to this fall design by getting that orchid up where it can be seen. If you're utilizing orchids for bridal work and you want to keep a nice clean white look just like this, when you start to wire an orchid, you need to support not just the stem, but you also want to support the beautiful bloom because it's a heavy bloom on a very thin stem. You generally are going to use a light wire like you would for any of your other body flowers, and we use what we call a hairpin wire. It's just bent into like you would see a hairpin from the old days back in the day or so, and you slide it right over the bloom inside and down beside each stem, just like this. So that way it's supporting the stem. And then you would just tape that off. That's what we've done with these orchids here. You can see it's easily taped off on the back. It supports the entire bloom. You can tape it off with whatever color tape. But if you're using it for wedding work and you don't want to see that little bit of wire that goes across that beautiful bloom, this is very old school, back from a long time ago. A little bit of that white tape across the center as it becomes your hairpin support. Again, it's going to go right down into the throat, and then because of it being white, it really just disappears. We do not see that on the top of the bloom, so that discolored or darker wire would really stand out, especially in something that's being shot for film. And remember, anything that you're making for a wedding is being created for the camera, so you want to make sure that you think about that as you begin to wire them. Now that we've wired with that with white, we can easily see that you cannot see that wire stuck down on the inside there, as well as we can't see the stem that used to be green. So it's a great way to add this into some of your wedding work. Something like this, we might add 1 or 2 blooms, depending on where you might place that. You can always attach it to the center, maybe some lily grass to come off. That's the great thing about using beautiful blooms like the Phalaenopsis orchid that stand on their own and don't require a whole lot of other flowers to support them. So think about incorporating Phalaenopsis orchids into your work to give it that final touch, that push to take it above, taking an everyday arrangement to the next level, incorporating a partial stem into an entire design, or just adding 1 or 2 blooms here or there. Anything that you can do to create that next level of design and push you ahead of the competition is something worth thinking about. Join us again next time for Design Time. If you enjoyed that video and you'd like to see more, click the subscribe button.